The idea for this scene began a few months ago. I have a strong passion for backpacking, exploring the wilderness, just experiencing nature and taking it all in. And I wanted this painting overall to encompass that and that feeling that I have when out in the mountains and while out exploring the backcountry. When we started this backpack trip, which began the idea for this particular painting, I'd never been up to this specific area or this drainage itself. I'd seen it on a map and I knew that it had the potential to produce some amazing views, and it looked like the type of place that would harbor a lot of wildlife. The first part of this trail was in dense vegetation. It was in a lot of dark timber and through a lot of rocky area. We didn't really see anything at all spectacular for about 5 miles. And as we got closer, however, up to the tree line and to the high country, it started to open up. And then a couple miles later along the trail, I came around a corner to one of the most stunning views that I've ever witnessed while living in this region. It wasn't quite exactly the same as what I'm painting here, but it gave me the feeling that I wanted to portray in this painting. We ended up spending about 6 or 7, 8 days back in this area, sleeping on a ground mat under the stars. And throughout that time, there were these moments all week long, night and day, that continued to inspire me more and more. And as I began to take in all of the beauty in this area, I just knew that I had to paint something from this experience. We saw moose, we saw fox, we saw elk, we saw deer. We made it to above the tree line, across some of the vast, dark timbered flats. And throughout all of this, there's a certain feeling that is hard for me to describe, but it's a sense of fulfillment and appreciation for life itself and life around me that really feeds my soul and fuels my desire to create and my desire to share these experiences with others. And as an artist, experiences like this and trips like this is what I really live for. And I just really hope that I can convey that passion and that expression to others when they view my work. I would say that this trip itself has inspired me to create a series of paintings this new year that will attempt to capture this past year's feelings and experiences that I've had while out in the backcountry. And so it all begins with this painting. When I visit places like this, I often imagine what isn't there. I imagine what could be, or perhaps what once was at some point in time. I usually take myself to a place that exists only in my daydreams, perhaps. And through that, I come up with inspiration for myself to capture light a certain way, to capture different elements of wildlife or weather in a certain way. Once I feel that I have the correct building blocks in my mind, and through capturing photo reference and everything else that goes along with experiencing the wild while you're out there, I begin piecing together what you see here. The backdrop of this valley, I thought, was so fitting for a painting. It just, for some reason, captures my imagination. And the expansive valley and the meadows down in the bottom of this drainage are just perfect examples of my favorite places while being out there, and just a good example of the places I like to be. The stream that ran through this place had looked like it had perhaps been mined for gold at one point. It looked like there had been some activity, and it had been altered to an unnatural look, in my personal opinion. So there was a lot of work to do to construct something that to me looked natural, to me that represented this spot and all its beauty properly, that it respectfully captured the essence of what I loved about this place. So I took many different photographs up and down this area. I used some of my imagination to construct the river or the stream the way it is, how you see it now. And a lot of the willows were present, but this place itself that you're watching come together really did not exist. Only bits and pieces of it did. It all came from somewhere in the 4 or 5 mile radius. For me, it's so enjoyable in my process to be able to manipulate things as I see them, sort of use my imagination to create along the way throughout the process of a painting. And once I really get into it and get to a point where I'm at right now in the process that you're seeing unfold, that's where I really start to become immersed into my subject matter and where I really start to feel what I'm painting in a way. When you're out in an area like this for an extensive amount of time, time itself seems to start to slow down. Small events throughout the day, perhaps a rock tumbling down the hill, the sound of a tree falling in the distance, an animal that you encounter, all of these, what would normally be small events in my mind, start to become larger and more significant. These become the major events of any day. And that really starts to put things into perspective for me. And that's why I feel that time begins to start to slow. And I start to take in what's around me a lot more intensively. And I become very in tune with everything. And that feeling itself, I feel like really drives me to create what I create. If I'm able to successfully capture that and get that type of feeling across to another individual when they see my work, that's when I feel fulfilled or most fulfilled as an artist. That's what my true intent is with every painting. To share experiences, to connect with others, to have people that share a similar love for wildlife and the outdoors, to feel like they can relate to my work. That's when I feel like I've succeeded as an artist. And so that's my hope with this series of paintings and my hope with this first painting that I'm beginning the series with. Seeing this painting come together really brought me back to those long, hard days of being up on the mountain, and it got me to reflect on my experiences while being out there and reflect on what's most important to me, not only as an artist, but as a person as well. I feel so lucky to be able to experience all this and to be able to pursue this. My appreciation for what exists out there and for what I have access to, it's just, there's no limits to that. I'm just so grateful for everything that I've experienced and everything that I get to see. And that's what I love about painting landscapes, and that's what I love about life. So with this particular scene, I wanted to capture light in a very dramatic in a very unique way. And I wanted to capture a feeling of peacefulness and convey the types of feelings that I had while I was out there. I thought that by including a small campfire, it would bring me back to this place, and it would allow others to feel like they can share this experience with me, or feel like they could see themselves there as well. But I didn't want to distract the viewer overall, so I didn't want to include any other items with the campfire. I wanted it to give a feeling of solitude and adventure. I wanted to really make it more about the outdoors and the place itself. I wanted to honor, yet feel as if one was connected to this place. I always find it so exhilarating when I see wildlife such as a bull moose or a fox or a bear. And I always love to capture some element of wildlife because it exists every day, all the time while you're out there. And you never know when you're going to come across something like that. But I wanted to keep it small, and I wanted it to also not distract the viewer from this place overall. So I kept the moose very subtle and sort of in the distance, much like how you'd see one in the wild. And I gave the fire a soft glow, a soft sense of warmth. And overall, I'm thrilled with how this came together. And I don't think that this painting needs any more words. I instead hope that this painting speaks for itself. And through the beauty of this scenery and the light and everything else that encompasses this painting, I hope that you can feel that connection as well and find a sense of peace when viewing it.